So the basic elements I want you to think about in terms of your IPM program is to know your crop growth cycles, and also know your pest. I mean, knowledge is power, guys, and if we kind of walk into it blindsided, then, that's fine to have experiential learning. I think it's great. But if we can avoid some of the detrimental impacts of the knee-jerk reactions, I think it's avoidable through knowledge. And so do the homework, do the research, and just get to know what you're dealing with. And then remember, with an IPM program, you want to combine these methods and really integrate the different practices. One size does not fit all. Sometimes it's going to work on one pest and sometimes it's not going to work on another. So you've got to combine these methods. Attack the weak link just means that you want to look at your pest's life cycle and attack them when they're at the weakest, because it's much easier if you're dealing with, larval stage insects or baby weeds, for example. It's much easier to attack them when they're small than when they're mature and fully functioning. And it's fun to monitor. It is fun to walk the fields on early morning, and you're not worried about anything but just walking through your plants and your rows and looking to see what's going on. And I say the last point is to preserve your beneficials through farmscaping, but really that should be at the very, very top, because I think if we have a diverse farm with a lot of different things going on, then we can create we can help create a healthy ecosystem on the farm that nature will take its course appropriately. Next slide, please. Just a few things on disease management. I think disease management is important on the farm, but I also think it's one of the most difficult because it's really hard to ID different crop diseases, especially if you're dealing with 100+ different varieties of fruits and vegetables and herbs. You can very easily become a hypochondriac farmer. So better to prevent disease than have to try to identify it in the first place. Next slide. But basically, with principles of disease management, you want to ID your problem and then follow these principles listed here. Avoidance, prevention, again, so important. Prevent the disease in the first place. Exclusion, which basically means, well, if you can't prevent the disease in the first place, you can try to prevent the introduction of a disease. Make sure you have healthy soils, healthy seeds, healthy plants. Eradication means if you find your disease, then you want to work to eliminate or destroy or inactivate it. Protection, basically preventing infection by some barrier to infection, like, for example, an inoculant. There's a really good seed treatment that's sold through Fedco Seed Company, and it's called the myco seed treatment, and it has mycorrhizal fungi and different organisms that you soak your seed in the night before you plant, and it can be really helpful for those types of crops that are sort of not as hardy as others in terms of disease resistance, and which leads us to resistance. Use cultivars that are resistant to infection. And then therapy. Try to cure, give those plants a little TLC that are already infected. Just because you have a disease doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. Plants are extremely hardy, and crops are very good at being crops, and they can survive. So just give them the TLC if that's what the disease calls for, and work through it. If nothing else, go to your county extension educator and get some help, because that's what they're there for. Next slide, please. With disease, the most important thing to remember in terms of prevention is to keep things sanitized and clean, just like you would taking care of yourself. You wash your hands, well, you wash your pots and your starts, or your starting pots and your starting flats, for example. If you're looking for more information on plant diseases, again, ATRA is awesome. There's so many different publications there that you need to go check out for disease management and different IPM strategies. Next slide. I have a few more slides, but basically the bottom line for this whole talk is to keep things healthy. To get healthy plants, you must have healthy soil, you must get diversified on the farm, and you have to plan accordingly. It does take planning to manage a healthy farm, and I think everybody has the tools that they need to do it, and that's why I just say get healthy, get diversified. Healthy plants equals a stronger immunity to different pests, to different weeds, to different disease. I did include the picture on the right hand side is a picture of a leek flower. We one year had let our leeks, a few leeks, just kind of overwinter. We didn't get around to harvesting them, and the next year they flowered and they produced these huge, beautiful allium flowers, which they're pretty. I'm this aesthetic person on the farm. I like things to be colorful. But what we didn't anticipate was that these leek flowers brought in the most amazing, huge, scary looking parasitic wasps to our farm. And they were awesome at keeping insect populations down. So parasitic wasps were a beneficial insect to us. And the leek flowers were just serendipitously the thing that drew them in year after year after year, because we just loved having these wasps on the farm. Diversity, it pays off. Next slide, please. Finally, after all of this planning and crop rotating and soil building and weed management and disease identification, holy cow, can we finally get to harvesting? It's what it's all about. We produce this beautiful, quality, healthy product that other people get to enjoy. It's really what it's all leading up to, isn't it? But harvest and post-harvest handling is often overlooked on the farm. It's sometimes a rush job, and we don't spend enough time planning for it. So I just wanted to take a few slides and reiterate the importance of taking it into consideration when we're looking at crop management. It's a big part of it. It's the end part of it. And what we do can really impact the quality of our product and its final destination. You need to look at when and how to harvest, because timing is everything. You must harvest at the right time, and you certainly learn this by experience, but you'll need the right tool for the right job. And you also don't want to forget that there's different labor needs for harvest versus just for regular crop management. When a crop is ready, it's ready, period. It's not based on whether you're ready or not. The crop is ready, it's ready, and a lot of different labor goes into harvesting it. At Ladybird Farms, we had our weekly harvest parties because it always was inevitable that the harvest would take a lot longer if it was just Jeremy and myself. So we loved having people out to help harvest, and it made it go a lot quicker. It shared the load and the labor, and it helped provide a quality product in the end because we were able to get done before it got too hot, for example. Next slide, please. We want to look at handling and storage because, it all depends on what you're harvesting, whether it's fruit, veggies, grains, livestock even, but you want the proper equipment and process to play out. Fresh market produce needs proper shading and cooling and tools and timing. So you have to look at all this sort of stuff when you're looking at post-harvest handling and harvest. Time of day is critical. I can't stress that enough. If you're harvesting things when it's in the heat of the day, then you need to go take a siesta and come back when it's dark or the next morning, because time of day impacts the quality of your product so much. Sorting and packing is another thing you need to think about, and what different equipment might be needed for that. Where are you going to sort and pack? How far from the field is it? How far do you have to carry things? What are you going to carry things in? We had a 3-basin sink at the farm, and you need access to cold, potable water that for health standards. You need to be able to keep things clean and sanitized. And in terms of sorting, you need bags, maybe rubber bands, twist ties, things like that. But shade is critical. Keeping things out of the sun and in shade and immediately cool once you harvest is really critical. And you also need to be careful when handling your crops, and you need to build up that knowledge that will help maintain that quality, prevent bruising, etc., etc. Storage, burlap goes a long way. If you don't have a walk-in cooler system, which, man, I wish I had one of those. But coolers and burlap, keep things wet, keep things cold, put it in the shade. It does work very, very effectively, and it's cheap. I put the CoolBot system here. If you had an insulated shed or something, you could use an old air conditioner and use a thing called the CoolBot, and it helps keep that air conditioner at I think it's like 37 to 40 degree range, and it's just a little computer module, and it's a pretty cheap way to build a walk-in cooler system. And that walk-in can really extend your harvest time so that you don't need to harvest everything all in one day. You can actually store it in that refrigerator type system a couple days in advance, depending on what your market is like.